Hello, Reality Riffing. This is Guru Jagat, and I was thrilled to finally be able to sit down and have a conversation with Laura Eisenhower, the great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower. She is such a bright light and a whippersnapper. Her wealth of knowledge and experience and perspectives in the alternative narratives of what's really going on in politics, exopolitics, in the power grabs and the dimensional battlefields of both planet Earth and beyond is really profound. And in all of that, she holds such a high frequency of starseed activation. I adore her. I can't wait to talk to her more. I told her that she is my new best friend, whether she likes it or not. And I hope you just really, really are provoked, at the very least, by my conversation with Laura Eisenhower. We're here for the reason of our own self-exploration. We're starting to define new types of relationships, why we all come together in certain formations, because we're here to serve each other. And this is like a new category of intimacy. Being together, part of it starts to kind of change the calibration of your nervous system. Women are going to be leading the world on all levels. We're broadcasting a whole new archetypal spectrum into the matrix, which is one of the most important things you can do now. The moment that this starts to imprint in your auric structure, that you like yourself, you start to light up. You just feel good being yourself. That's enlightenment. Hello, Reality Riffing, Rama Festival, and all the planetary and off-planetary people who are watching this right now and in the future. We're excited because I was just saying to Laura that we've been stalking you, Laura. We've been so excited. We wanted to talk to you and your great, incredible work that you're doing through astrology and as a medical intuitive, and obviously all of the kind of exopolitics and disclosure that you've brought to the masses. So thank you so much for being here with us.
It's such a pleasure and honor. Seriously, I didn't catch a lot of those messages. It's not an account I don't check very often, but I'm honored. I mean, I just absolutely want you to stalk me. I'm glad you didn't give up. I would have been so bummed if I had known that I'd missed something.
We're very stubborn. I was like, I know Laura is like, our new best friend. She just doesn't know it yet.
Oh, I know it. I feel it. It's huge.
So obviously we've come together in this very auspicious moment, and I would love to just start with anything you'd like to share. I mean, these are historic times for any cosmologist, and curious just both your experience being in this moment and anything that has, that you feel is relevant that you'd like to share about this conjunction and all the other kind of astrological phenomenon that are happening.
Oh, it just feels so powerful. The energy is just getting a lot lighter. I feel like a celebratory feeling. It's been such a heavy year. I know everybody has been hit real hard by what's been going on in the world. It's a global thing. I mean, every country, every state in the US, everybody's been impacted. How we handle it is not going to be the same. For some, it's part of the Great Awakening to be kind of pushed to the edge, to begin to lift away some of the facades and layers that don't give us the full picture of the true nature of the reality that we're dealing with. And for others, it's really yanked them into more fear and more compliancy. And I really feel for those individuals. And then for those of us that I think have been researching this for a while and been kind of staying on board with these agendas and these plans that they've had, the New World Order agenda, it's sort of like, okay, yeah, here it is. All right, it's showdown of forces. Let's duke it out. what I've really been processing a lot lately is not sinking down into the us against them, to really understand what makes the cabal, and what individuals are dealing with in order to make them the individuals that we see that we might consider the dark controllers. Right. Some of them are heavily blackmailed. Some have been through trauma-based mind control, multi-generational abuse. And it's just really important that we understand a much, much larger picture, because there's a lot of souls that can kind of return home and return to center if they feel that we understand it enough to be able to maybe, embrace them instead of, just polarize ourselves even further because, we're victimized or we're angry. So there's many different stages that, all of us, move through when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I know that sometimes it's a bit of a roller coaster as far as how one processes it. But the Mother Earth energy is absolutely where it's at, the planetary consciousness, what this whole ascension window period is really all about. And, we've had the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunctions in the sign of Capricorn starting off the year. It really represents the paradigm shift. And because it's a time of awakening and transformation, these darker tactics that are based in inversions and reversals have wanted to stunt our growth in the fear of death and the fear kind of energetic of it all. Yeah. And that's when we're really just facing that dark night of the soul on a collective level. Maybe some traumas and triggers are coming up from, previous times where planets exploded, or the Lemurian Holocaust, the Atlantean cataclysms, and the multiple genocides and holocausts that have happened across the board. Where, to me, the Great Awakening is moving out of that victim consciousness, moving out of fear, and not letting ourselves be played by these trigger events and psychological operations that are literally just trying to steal our energy and stay in power. So here we are, Jupiter, Saturn conjunction, and that's in the sign of Aquarius. So these two planets that have been in Capricorn are now moving into Aquarius, but the sun enters Capricorn. So we're dealing with the law of structure. I've talked a lot about the Saturn moon matrix and the dark technologies connected to Saturn, how that's impacted the moon, and how that very much represents the patriarchal programs, but multiple layers of other things hiding behind that it's not just a patriarchal program. We're talking off-planet stuff. We're talking things connected to a greater galactic history that we're not being taught or reminded of. And but the energetic shift into the Aquarian energy is way more about connecting with truth, our authenticity, and just the power of synchronicities connected to our higher mind. And then the Saturn energy helps us to ground that and anchor it into the law of structure while we heal and detach ourselves from the dark side of Saturn, which is very much about the tyranny and control, so that we can work with Saturn on our own terms. And the higher octaves of Saturn have to do with self-mastery and becoming a teacher. So this is kind of where we're heading. Uranus is going to be square Saturn for a while, and that's just a bit of that power struggle that we're going to still have to deal with. But, we just have to just hold that alignment and just continue to bring in this incredible positive energy. And I have to say that this is one of the most high vibe, incredible festival energies I've ever experienced. So, you really are encompassing what this is about and what we can begin to embrace. And this can have such a massive ripple effect and bring so many souls out of this space of confusion and, where they might think it's political. Do I need to choose right or left? It's like, no. There's a much bigger picture going on here. It's a spiritual awakening and trying to help people claim their sovereignty and their true connection to spirit, and to know who's who and kind of what's at stake. And that's where, it gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness connected to the political realm that we've been dealing with for many decades.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Thank you for that transmission, because I think it's so important that as we kind of morph and mutate into these new, I really feel like new archetypes are forming through those who are awakening. And so we're not just holding the personal, obviously we're holding a huge kind of collective morphing of archetype in this new age that we're dawning and birthing and we're all a part of. I think that it's such a seduction to keep our kind of againstness or our blame for the, whatever kind of, whether you want to call it like in a psychotherapeutic, like the father syndromes or the phobias or the, trauma, whatever, you could say that level, or, it's obviously much bigger than that, but the samskaras, and I think that's really important. Thank you for saying that, because anytime you're revealing some of these polarities and the way that this planet and the galaxy and the universe, part of the way that it works and that we haven't been educated in, I think it's easy for that to polarize into some of the things that we've known before, which are scarcities and againstness and fear and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for that, because I really feel it's important.
Yeah, I mean, it does really come down to our relationship with the mother-father. That's been modeled to us instead of the mother-father. That's our divine template that really encompasses the fullness of creation, and the magical child energy, the Christ Sophia template, and all these, aspects of ourselves that we've forgotten about because of amnesia, because of, trauma and all sorts of tactics to dumb us down and compromise our DNA. But it's a part of the greater experience of learning the right use of power, kind of like going to that lost and found scenario where we can lose ourselves so much, but there's always that spark of light. There's always that seed of truth that can help us to come back and regenerate and heal from pretty much anything and everything. And so I feel like the human race is turning into the most unbelievable warrior race in the universe. Not everybody's on board, but but at the same time, we're beyond human, because we are recovering ourselves. We are going through like a reunion right now where we're reclaiming what was lost. And it all goes back to, a very deep, vast galactic history starting in like Lyra. And so the rebuilding of the DNA architecture is where it's at. But to rebuild it is not just to get into the science of it all to the point where we lose the point, where it becomes so technical, we forget that it's a love story. We can get into the concepts on a scientific level, but if the spiritual side of it isn't included, sometimes it gets lost on people. It's like some people just want to smell the flower and feel the essence and not necessarily need to know the biology of it. But when one at least knows that one validates the other, it can really help to integrate the polarity of the right and left brain that is meant to be integrated and not, same with the electric, magnetic, the masculine and feminine, and all these different kind of things. So what I've learned, which has been the most valuable thing that kind of kept me going in a flow of really bringing in a lot of downloads and presentations, have to do with the fact that our DNA and the nucleic acids in our DNA are elemental: earth, air, fire, water. And the fifth element, ether, is connected to the mitochondrial DNA and the mother energy. And that energy, as of 2010, really got anchored back into the planet when the sun started to move through the 13th sign of Fiacus. So we've been feeling into like this greater healing that's actually healing our DNA. And when one steps back, they can, we can see the elemental part of it, the purification of this ether energy and reconnection with the mother. But when we look at the way the strands are synthesizing and unscrambling the fire codes that scientists have called junk DNA, it's literally sacred union, alchemical marriage, and hierogamic union. That the way that we heal and upgrade our DNA is to reclaim true love and to divorce ourselves from all the imposters, the falsities, the narcissists, the things that like really have caused a lot of identity crises, self-hatred, insecurities, or getting so wrapped into the reward system that a person doesn't realize that their ego is literally leading them so much astray that they're making a lot of money screwing over really good people, right?
Right. I mean, I've had this thought, I'm curious what you think of it, of just around, the hybridization and the, some obviously all sorts of hybridization of the human species, but certainly when we're looking at, okay, there's a certain non-human darker force, you could call it reptilian, you could call it, you could call it a lot of different things. It could be traced back into kind of the galactic history in different ways, but that being hybridized into humans into some humans, both by just kind of through the mind and then also through the DNA. I mean, I don't know. I was just thinking of like the awakening of the humanity in that kind of form of what the agenda has been to hybridize, humans in a maybe darker way. I don't know. I feel like that's part of what has to happen in terms of this DNA awakening, and also like seeing that we're at the Star Wars bar, and it's there's space for everybody in this harmonious kind of accord. What's your opinion on this? I'm not expressing it
I
beautifully.
love that whole the bar scene of Star Wars. That's totally. I mean, diversity and harmony is oneness. We're not all going to be the same. There's so many different types of species and races, and then, there's supposedly 22 different types of ET genetics that we're carrying. I don't know fully if that's true, because some of the sources I don't fully trust, but it makes sense as far as what I've come to understand. And all that aside, the hybridization part of it is very much targeting the consciousness of the individual. The hybridization is trying to change the DNA in order to, bring about an imbalance and introduce, some level of, control, so that there's a genetic trait that enters the picture that pulls a person's consciousness into something that is harmful, but it doesn't present itself in that way. And that's where belief systems, ideologies, control systems, politics, medical industry, and everything that represents all the power structures of our society, when it comes down to how we meet our basic needs on an everyday level, including the indoctrination in the school systems, are really wanting to, tap into a part of the hybridization nature that so many of us hold. And that's not something we need to be too concerned about, because spirit overrides everything.
Right.
DNA is connected to these higher harmonic universes, not just the masculine and feminine, and, sacred union leading into these other levels of union that helps us to really reconnect with, God source, cosmic trinity, the guardian founder rays. These hybridized aspects make us very vulnerable to just not being curious enough and just being easily indoctrinated. And there's many different types of hybridization programs. Some are to help to advance the humans that have fallen into amnesia and have become very enslaved. And some are to compromise humans even more, and become totally genetically modified to the point that the ones that want to save themselves end up, creating abduction scenarios to gain genetic material. But the question is, are they really trying to rescue themselves? Or are they trying to enslave more people? And this whole hive mind thing and AI assimilation just becomes like this virus, which is the real virus that sucks up more people than we would want to see. We don't want to see anybody, go down that road. So the hybridization to me is just sort of like an introduction of an imbalanced frequency. And not every hybridization scenario is going to be like that. But at the end of the day, we have access to a really, really vast living library. The question is, it's like hybridization is very similar to healing from ancestral patterns. It might take us a little bit deeper into the dark night of the soul. It's like, whoa, this is really dark night of the soul. It's like we're going off into like all these other dimensions, because a lot of some of the initial dark night of the soul's experience is sometimes just about healing from ancestral patterns. Maybe what we went through because of the way we were raised, some of the ancestral patterns that we came in with, maybe past lives connected to a lot of our experience in this human, the human history of, being like down here on this particular level. So to me, everything's healable. DNA damage is healable. Hybridization programs, or the hybridization that we've gone through and the dumbing down of our DNA, is healable. Because once a person connects with spirit, once a person really starts to find truth, once a person begins to bring unconditional love into those dark corridors of, trauma and the things that we might feel guilty or regretful about, we really begin to find that God source energy again. And we recognize, wow, it's not a punishing God. It's not the Anunnaki. Those aren't our true creators, we start to feel into the unconditional love. And then our higher self wants to bless us with that same gift. And all those different things that have created so much distortion and damage begin to dissolve. And I think that, to me, is what awakening is all about. And it doesn't matter how compromised a person has been. We all have the birthright and ability to absolutely heal and transform. And when a person takes that challenge upon themselves, which is very much the starseed mission, and they incarnate into a scenario that might be very, very dark and daunting, once we are able to overcome that, we give the collective consciousness that medicine, and it helps to encourage souls that might not have that guide or that doctor, feel like an inspiration. I mean, and the thing is, sometimes it even happens with people standing next to each other without having to say anything. You get this vibe, this transmission, this feeling, from a person, and it might launch a person into a growth period. It could be, it triggers almost a detox response. I mean, if green food and herbs can do that, it's no different in the spiritual realms. I mean, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies run by very much the same sort of laws and principles. We need hygiene. So when the spiritual body is overwhelmed with false belief systems, archons and entities might come along, similar to if we left food out on the counter and we didn't clean it up, the rats and the mice and the ants and the cockroaches might show up. So, it's a maintenance thing, really. And I just think everything is healable. And people aren't always going to see reality in the same lens. But as long as there's authenticity and truth, integrity, and mutual love and respect, we're going to do great. And that's what this dark agenda is really trying to do the opposite of, is to promote the victim consciousness in order to continue to conquer and divide us. And we got to really steer away from that.
Yeah. And we know, I mean, you've seen, it's almost, because it has to be kind of extreme and like grotesque in a certain way, like such a gross kind of act because of the nature of the way that that energy moves. But I mean, the attacks on the starseeds and those who are holding, some version or some mission of why they came here and they haven't forgotten. I mean, this has been heavy this year. I know you. I mean, I assume that you're being attacked in these ways. I have been more attacked than ever this year, just by and it feels non-human. It's like it's weird. It's like an amorphous kind of field.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, even tonight, just being called a gullible fool, and and then there's a part of me that it's like you're not gonna knock me off my center. You're not gonna ever be able to convince me that the truth I feel connected with is false, even though I like to stay flexible and but it's like if the vibration of respect is missing, to me, the truth is gone. It's not about any of us having to be 100% correct. It's like, how do we treat each other? Right. How do we address these greater issues? Can we create conversations that are comfortable so that we can be a part of the greater conversation and share data, share research, share information with love and respect? And it's in such a low vibration that I have to watch myself because I just want to go back and just like boom,
Yeah.
But kind of a tough love. I'm not going to insult you. I'll go back and edit it if I accidentally did, or delete it. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of really, do you want to see how that feels? I won't stoop to their level, but I'll give, data and information to kind of just give just enough of a sting to hopefully make that person curious, but not totally offended, because I don't want to hurt anybody.
Right.
So the attack is crazy. And I grew up with that too. It's like I was the kid considered to have ADD, learning disabilities. Yeah. I never did well in school. I never went to school. I had the worst attendance in my whole high school.
Yeah.
So it was so easy for me to just be considered, she's just really out there and she's probably not going to amount to much. She's not taking her education seriously. Mm-hmm. And, but guess where I was? I was in the library. I was studying all this other stuff. And I tried to share it. Nobody wanted to hear it. So it's there's that slow kind of level of attack that is very subtle, and it's just sort of and then you kind of, a person can easily carry stigmas, and then there's trolls, and then there's, targeting with, dark technology. But yeah, social media is mockingbird media. I mean, that's part of the tactic to bring in the New World Order. I mean, the media is probably the biggest machine and weapon being used.
Yeah.
And this is how we're relating right now. We can't go to events. We can't fly and see each other. So everything's really happening over, the internet. And to me, we're going to have to win the war through our electronics and take down the AI and destructive part of it that's connected to the CCP and this other aspect of a certain side of what we've been seeing in the election that is censoring and banning the genius minds and the healers and the ones that are really going to help to uplift humanity. And then the great thing is that people like us don't give up. It's like, you want to take us down over here, we're going to show up over there.
Yeah.
I feel we have such an unstoppable spirit that it's inevitable. Nothing can defeat spirit. And if we're aligned with spirit, it's just a matter of time. But they're just going to try and make everything as miserable as they can because they're pissed off. But in the same kind of token, we've totally got this, and victory is ours. And we won't compromise ourselves or make decisions from fear. Yeah. But it's hard, when you're empathic and you see people doing that. And the thing in our arms and, all that kind of stuff. But it seems things are going in the right direction. And there's a lot going on that we're not going to hear about just yet. But yeah. I think after, with this peak time of Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, because Uranus and Aquarius is such a high vibrational energy and it's connected to truth, we're going to find out some very reassuring things very soon. Doesn't mean it's not going to be bumpy though, because of that, Saturn square, but yeah. It's an important growth period for people to work with the law of structure and enlighten the dark Saturn by not allowing oneself to be run by these dark controllers that use fear tactics to, keep us in a low vibration and the fight or flight that doesn't give us a feeling of inspiration in terms of, right. Stepping into our higher potential, because literally they're threatening people's livelihood, which is really sad to see with, small business owners and, and just people with young kids that it's like trying to keep a mask on a 2-year-old. I don't know if you saw the video of the woman being, taken off the plane and all these kind of stories we see. So, yeah. But this is where the love energy can increase. And this is why I love that you're doing this, because people are going to, see this in 52 countries, and they're going to feel that mother love, and divine father. And, that there's so much of this higher energy that is here on this earth. And because it doesn't come through the news, some people might feel very isolated and not believe that it's actually there. So it's so beautiful that you guys have done this, because I know that this heals the hearts of so many people that are, we're fortunate enough to know that it's going on and got the link.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel the ripple tangibly, in my mitochondria. And this is what, keeps me going, is like, that's the truth, is you feel the kind of awakening of the mitochondria. I mean, I remember reading A Wrinkle in Time, and it was kind of the first time as a child that I was like, oh, I can feel my mitochondria. I know what that is. I know how that's related to the quantum field. And, that's still that was my first kind of education in it, but that's like, you can feel it. You can feel the shift. And, I do believe we're the majority. I know we are. And I guess my question for you is, for those listening now and in the future, there's so much cognitive dissonance, and especially if maybe it's the first time this year or even recently that you've kind of woken up and thought like, oh, maybe there's more going on here than meets the eye. Can you give just kind of a little bit of a fundamental things that you think are important to just take a look at and maybe, research or have your head above the water on? Just your kind of punch list of what you feel like people need to continue their awakening process in terms of, figuring out the playing field. Because I do think that's it's just very important right now.
Right. So you're like reassuring things that are based in real evidence and
how the world works a little bit. I mean, you have you've spent your whole life basically researching this stuff and putting it together, and kind of also your direct experience in terms of more than meets the eye. But just curious, for somebody new, to what would you give them in terms of research this, understand what's happening here, your little punch list?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
and it has been a lifelong thing. And I would say Helontic Science, energeticsynthesis.com, Lisa Renee, is a really, really good source to go to. Ascension Glossary, you can put any sort of term in that might kind of go over your head and see something, get defined. I've been getting these downloads since I was a child, and that gave me the goosebumps when I found that information. I was like, I'm so grateful that there's something out there that, is confirming all of this. I would say, look at the micro macro. The physical laws of our bodies and consciousness is really no different than what we're seeing on a larger picture level. When we're not in balance, we are very vulnerable to entity attachments, negative individuals coming into our life, taking advantage of our vulnerabilities. So we're kind of going through a spiritual boot camp. And I've just used the term spiritual athlete for lack of a better term, that we're learning to not be victimized by the obstacles. We're learning to gain strength. We're learning to leap over. We're learning to reclaim our greater abilities in the face of adversity. All of this is giving us great spiritual muscles, metaphorically speaking. And we don't want to be victimized. We don't want to look at challenge in a way that, creates fear. We need to become inspired. We need to become we need to just be up for the challenge and know that our willingness to be up for the challenge is, all we really need to commit and devote to, besides, the greater virtues of things like compassion and integrity and, honoring other life forms and being a guardian and a steward for Mother Earth and a person that also is humble enough to be able to receive messages from source energy that our higher mind is connected to. And when we can do that, we begin to heal, we begin to purge and cleanse, and we create better relationships. So if we can do that on a collective level and recognize that there's been imbalance, there's been these dark technologies, there's been the targeting of the human race so that we're pit against each other, that the masculine and feminine, can't see really eye to eye. The family unit's been targeted. We've been dealing with world wars and just all sorts of unbelievable things that we can take it upon ourselves to resolve it within, resolve also the archetypal imbalances and battles among different races within ourselves, and know that we don't have to be saved or wait for something else to solve it for us. We are given the challenge and the sort of the stress and anxiety of it all to have a breakthrough, to realize that this constricting energy is not here to destroy us. It's here to snap and all of a sudden be like, whoa, wait a second. I get it now. This has to do with my own bioterrain. This has to do with my own inner world. And this has to do with me stepping up to the plate and recognizing that my purpose, which we all have a collective purpose to embrace about, is to live the micro world as a living example of what we'd like to see the outer world to be. And I love what you said, because you said that the show you created is the show that you want to see. And so you made it, right?
Yeah.
So when I kind of feel stressed about what I'm seeing in the outer world, or then I make it a part of my mission to I'll do something about it. I'm not going to wait for somebody else.
Right.
So we all have an incredible calling. We all have an incredible purpose. And we need to just shut everything down and connect with that, because the true powers that be is Mother Earth, cosmic energy, and source. And we are amazing vessels that can generate and flow this greater energetic into the outer world and see beautiful things happen. But it is creating a healing crisis, of course. And so in the part of the healing crisis that we're seeing that is holding people to fear of a virus, fear of death, that's they're one step away from that breakthrough where their whole perception about reality can shift and they can begin to go from caterpillar to butterfly. Like right now, they're like mass caterpillars when it's like, these are the times to, embrace this letting go of the old paradigm into the new paradigm, which is very much about the mother. And as of 2010, when the sun started to move through the 13th sign of Theicus, like we were talking about, this is giving us activations and transmissions that will really, really heal so much. So shut down the news, shut down these outer narratives, just starve these energies that are pulling out survival or negativity or fear, and just know that we are a greater collective. There's many star seeds here. There's many people with missions, and we're building community. We're building the immune system of the planet on a humanity level, and we are aligning with, the planetary ascension that's encoded in this planet. And you don't have to understand it all. Just let go enough to know that there are beautiful souls on this earth, that are really here to support and help. But none of us are really going to be able to let go and, trust until we really trust ourselves. But some will, maybe want to trust, but that's when they might miss the mark and end up, maybe with somebody that doesn't have their best interests in mind. But that doesn't matter so much if things fall into place for them to be able to avoid that, but that is not always guaranteed. So, trust yourself, trust what's coming through. And the more one trusts themselves, the things that need to be purged, like the guilt and the regrets and the shame and the self-hatred, or all the darker aspects of self, when we trust ourselves, we're able to face that instead of allow it to unconsciously rule us to the point where we allow the darkest of evil to tell us how to live and what to think. And when we can trust ourselves more, we're in a truth frequency that can see through the lies. And we can begin to call our power back from people that absolutely don't deserve a piece of us at all, ever again.
And I mean, I think that it's like, you say it, and it's like everyone who's listening to this now in the future this is resonating, because truth, it's a universal truth. And it's like, well, how can it be that easy? And of course, it's deprogramming at a very, kind of on every level. But ultimately, it is that easy too. It's like that's where the paradigm shift has to happen. But that's also why they've amped it up, in terms of the mind control and the psyops and the AI, all the nanotech. And I mean, that's part of why we're just seeing like a hysterical amount of this. Like it's almost, it's bizarre.
It is bizarre. And, it's all these attachments and dependency. They've created a dependency in a very, very negative sort of, relationship that's very similar to a person stuck in a marriage that is toxic and terrible. And there's that fear of what's going to happen if I break away from it. Well, that's when the miracles and the magic happens. Because I remember when I was living on the road and I didn't have any money, every time I was in that lack, scarcity, poverty consciousness, and I felt like a victim, like nothing good happened. Negative and dark people would show up, and I certainly didn't help my health, and it almost just got worse. And then it was like I had those breakthrough moments where I'm like, I'm abundant, I'm free, I'm where I am, and I'm here for a reason, and I embrace it all. And I just shifted my perspective, and I started to pull money out of the ground. I started to manifest synchronicities where I was led to amazing people, and I was like, boom! It was just like a shift of perception.
Yeah.
And so, and I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have that shift in perception. I'd definitely be floating down a river.
Yep. Yeah.
Like not alive, like found and in the news.
Yeah.
Or in a newspaper article, maybe it's like, whatever happened to her?
Yep. Yep. I mean, and it is that. I mean, that's the timeline shift. What do you think about this kind of what seems to be more of an apparent crack in, in terms of the obvious parallel times. I mean, some people are living on a completely different timeline than we're living in, and it's
Right.
I mean, what's your opinion about this?
Well, I mean, the whole idea of bifurcation, I've been, talking about that a lot, and I've been talking to a lot of people about that. And I think one of the things that me and this person I was talking to recently had a similar picture about is that there is a bifurcation, but there's a bridge between these two timelines where we're not completely, separating in a drastic way. There's still communication, there's still connection, but it comes down to, when you start to have boundaries, when you start to say, this is toxic and I can't be in this relationship anymore, you are allowing yourself to move into a different timeline. Doesn't mean that just vanishes and it never existed. It's just you're not engaging in it. So you're not on that timeline with them, but they still exist. And you still might text them every once in a while, but you're not like energetically corded to the point where you're taking on their karma or whatever. I mean, so there's this point where we can't occupy the same space if the mindset is going in two different directions. So the organic ascension timeline is going to be all about, DNA upgrades, feeling more connected with nature, communicating with animals more, feeling all these like really amazing, transmissions and like all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And so then we see this darker one that wants to rip all that away from us. But they're more targeting the awakening population, not the ones that are already awakened. You can't get the ones that are already awakened. The frequency match is not there. But the vulnerable ones that are in a process of awakening are utterly confused are the ones, that are kind of like, and then you got the ones that are cheering on their enslavement and absolutely all about it. And it doesn't matter. They could have all the evidence in the world and see things literally proven to the point where an event could take place and they could look at it in like living reality and say, no, that didn't happen. No, that's disinformation. No, that's all conspiracy theories.
Right.
Even though it's like all the proof and evidence is there. It's like there's thousands of affidavits and all this stuff connected to the, what. And it's just like people are still like, no, there's no evidence. And that's just one part of it.
Yeah.
So those individuals more than likely, and we're trying to, bring as many souls into this particular part of the bifurcation. I don't even necessarily feel like it's guaranteed there will be a bifurcation, but if it continues to go on this way, the other part of it is the Uranus and Aquarian energy. The shadow of that is transhumanism and AI.
Yeah.
The shadow side of any planetary body, similar to Saturn, is that it's an unintegrated part of ourself. That's why the dark energies of Saturn being control and tyranny means that we haven't figured out how to be sovereign and strong in who we are. So we allow a negative authority to rule us, but we can overcome that just in our own life. Uranus is all about breakthroughs, authenticity, connecting with truth in our higher mind. If we don't allow ourselves to go through that growth period and we stay in the shadow side of it, expecting something outside of us to guide us in that kind of energetic, it's like, oh, well, you don't want to wake up and recognize that you're the most advanced technology. Well, here we have transhumanism and AI. And we will turn you into more of a zombie because you're just not up for the challenge. But of course, they're not thinking that.
Right.
So
right.
So every planet has its sort of shadow element or lower energetic. But when we can take these energies and see, how can I, stand in alignment to the highest growth or the highest expression of it, then we're home free. The planets connect with our organs, our endocrine system, our energetic body, our DNA, our chakras. And so whatever is coming at us that feels negative or something that, creates a doom and gloom feeling, you're on the verge of knowing that you need to have a breakthrough. It's no different than when our physical body shows symptoms and we start to fear like, oh, do I have cancer? Am I going to die? Do I have COVID? It's like, that's an opportunity to say, I'm going to work this energy. I'm going to ask it what it's here for. I'm going to start to connect more with myself and more with my consciousness and my physical body to allow this to bring me closer to myself instead of further away. Because this is the crisis that we're in right now. Can we let adversity bring us home? Or are we going to let adversity mean that somebody else needs to run the show for us because we are absolutely clueless to our greater capacity to grow in the face of adversity?
Thank you for saying that and all of that, because I think, I've been talking a lot about this for years now, just about kind of the transhumanism and AI agenda. Ultimately, it only can really, for lack of a better word, implant in the human experience if we don't understand that our minds are the greatest computer that ever will be created. And so therefore, nothing can be more intelligent or more agile than the human mind, in terms of, our kind of centered experience. But the human mind is a time-space machine. The human mind is, this is as sophisticated as it gets, and we've just scratched the surface. So if you're not aware of your own thoughts, then of course AI can read your thoughts. This is where I think the intersection of all of this. So I've been talking about this for years, but I do feel like, because of the predictive programming of the dystopian future and all this kind of stuff, it's a topic that I just think that for many feels very kind of scary, and therefore, we kind of get blind to it, and then before we know it, we're just spending our lives scrolling mindlessly while we're being marketed to, while they read our thoughts that we have no idea we're having.
Oh, right. Totally. Yeah. It's the unconscious self versus shining a light on our unconsciousness in order to wake up to the fact that we're multidimensional and we're dreamers and we have a creative imagination. And if we disassociate and tune out from that, something else is going to tune in. If we're not empowered, something else is going to try and gain power over us. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's freaking mind blowing. And yeah, I've been studying all that too. And so people, I think, wonder, are we at the mercy of what other humans decide? If we don't have a great awakening, are we all going to be subject to this? And I just know that the strength of people that are aligned with spirit doesn't matter. They're not afraid of death. Nobody can have you. Nobody can own you. Nobody can control you. And in being aware of the multidimensional, the veil between life and death and the reality world and the dream world, there's no real veil that separates the two, which means that we can transverse this. And so therefore, those more awakened people that are like, oh, this doesn't look so good, we all have nothing to fear. It's very concerning, though, because I think what's kind of kept us kind of anchored here for a long time is we don't want to leave our friends and family in the dust. We don't want to, it's like, I do so many readings for people and it's like so obvious. And I felt this, at times in my life where, man, there's all sorts of events that take place to keep you grounded here so you can do your mission. But if you didn't have this agreement, it'd be so easy to just fly away, just be like, I'm going back to wherever that doesn't have these kind of wacko issues.
Right.
Because I don't feel, I feel there are many souls that incarnate into the human wheel in a very different way than the ones that are just being recycled. There are a lot of starseed missions and, you and everybody that you've brought in like totally embody that and are exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part of, in the yogic science, it's kind of talked about that 80% of the souls that are reincarnated over and over again on the planet are kind of in that samskaric kind of wasteland. And they get an opportunity, just like everybody, to not be. But that's kind of part of the thing. So what do you think, what do you think our greatest defense against the AI and the 2030 and the Great Reset and, all this kind of stuff? What are some ways that you think we need to be kind of pointing ourselves in terms of the next 24 hours and then, eons? What's your feeling about this?
Well, I definitely feel we need to build community and engage our creative energy in things that are invested in what we want to see take place, or else we run the risk of an infection. I'm not talking virus. It's like the mind control, because, what's interesting is the sign Virgo is ruled by Mercury and it connects to our physiology. It connects to our physical health and it's ruled by Mercury, which has to do with the mental body. if we're not connected to truth, I mean, and humans haven't been for a long time because of these dark agendas and amnesia. I mean, some have, but I mean, that's what has made humans so vulnerable to disease, epidemics, and all these different kind of things. So we're reconnecting with our higher mind in order to create physical wellness and health and well-being. And so we all have a role, we all have a purpose, and one that we all have in common, and one that we all have on a unique level that become the building blocks to restoring our DNA and rebuilding the structure of our DNA and the tree of life, so that there's a root system and we're also expanded into the multidimensional. So we need to build community. People need to refuse to compromise themselves. Everybody needs to stand up and be a warrior. And I love hearing some of the stories, like the person in New York with the gym who's like, I'm not shutting down. I don't care if you find me, like if enough of us just, I mean, and a lot of people are already doing this, refuse to comply, refuse, things that are mandating, and we start to, come together to build upon the power of our creativity and our ability to overthrow this by, pooling our resources together. I mean, we all have, something to bring to the table that we can, share, that we will starve this thing instead of try and, we'll try and solve it through the 3D way, and because that keeps us entangled. So I feel that we're going to get on better platforms. We're going to put our heads together. We're going to grow and expand and make ourselves known so that those that feel isolated and threatened and victimized know that there's communities and resources that are loving and healing, instead of these things that are like entrainment camps and like FEMA camps, and where the globalist agenda and that kind of dark agenda is saying, well, we need to be in charge because of climate change and all these manipulative ways to hook a person's good intentions in, saying this is the only way that we can solve these greater issues, right? No, it's the angels of the world. It's the goddess. I mean, the people that are awakened that are going to present themselves to humanity and say, no, we're going to do it this way. And then when people notice this and begin to choose this, and they don't have their consent anymore or their fear anymore, we're going to knock this stuff down and we're going to knock it out. I mean, this is like the immune system of a body knocking out a disease. Right. So we need to grow and expand and continue to do this kind of thing. And the more it's exposed to those that need it most, the more the ripple effect will happen. And then people realize, wow, this isn't political. These are spiritual beings. These are healers. These are people that are, looking out for our best interests and just, being the resource. So we want to engage our creative energy. We want to, just come together and build healing centers and refuse to comply and have a loaded gun just in case. Because you know what? You ain't gonna F with us.
Yep. Love. I'm with you. Thank you for the warrior message, because it is. I think it's important to have that warrior's cry. My spiritual lineage is a warrior's lineage. We're not we don't just back down. And I think all spirituality is really based in that kind of warrior. We call it warrior sainthood, but it's this is I think the major kind of cry. Another friend of mine is calling it the revolution of the empaths, which I thought was a cool term for it.
We're guardians of all that's sacred, and it's understandable that the warrior would have to emerge, because the desecration of all that's sacred is not okay. Yeah, and we're not going to allow it.
Yeah. Thank you for these powerful messages, and we're hours from the solstice and hours from this grand conjunction. Any final kind of transmissions that you'd like to give tonight?
Well, I feel everybody just have an easy day. Don't overwork. Just ground yourself. Treat yourself to just beautiful food and herbs and essential oils and maybe soak in water, maybe go for a walk in nature. Just really feel into just what is really real instead of fearing it doesn't exist, because this other reality that so many people have bought into is the false. Mother Earth and what's unfolding on a soul level in the collective right now is what's real. And it's a cosmic and earthly event. And we need to just say, I devote to being in alignment with it. Everything else doesn't exist, really. It's trickery, it's deception, and it's built upon criminality and abuse of the innocents, the children, and it's tried to weaponize nature. Now the mother energy is back. So I've done enough research, and so have you, and enough of us out there have done enough just soul searching or research or whatever you want to, like all the multiple ways that we've, come to these kind of conclusions, to safely say and confidently say that the mother energy is here, and it's not separate from the Father. It's a part of our divine blueprint, and it is leading the charge. And we, when we engage in that, become leaders. And it's a different form of leadership than the old paradigm model. Yeah. It's about inspiration. It's about leading by example. So take just the time that you need to just bask in the knowingness of that, because that fear is the virus. That fear breaks down the immune system. Being masked and avoiding each other and following a steered narrative through any external source other than your own intuition and higher mind is something to have major, major discernment and boundaries about. Don't worry about the political, don't worry about the election right now. Just really get into, a space that supports you and your own, process of self-discovery. Get curious, get interested, become like an archaeologist of your own being, and just get excited about what you're going to discover, because we have barely tapped into our greater potential, but we have ancient memories, that give us that greater soul longing to reclaim. So follow that longing, let it be your guide instead of the thing that, crushes you constantly and makes you depressed. It's not there to screw with you. It's there for you to claim. The outer narrative is going to just, bully you out of it. Don't let it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And just the everything that's happening, said and unsaid, with what's coming through right now, is a deep healing. So I just want to really honor you and honor what's coming through you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just, a lot of it, anything that comes through me is really inspired by your presence. So thank you, and all that you've done with this event and everything that you do, and just your beautiful energy and just being on this earth. And I'm so glad that we connected, because I totally feel the soul family thing, and I'm just elated. So, the frequency of this event and meeting you has pushed me into the place of what I hope people can do for themselves, and that they'll notice that magic and synchronicity in their life. Because when we're in fear and anxiety, we tend to notice the things that reinforce it, and we miss out on the things that, when we hold trust within ourselves, align us with the synchronicities that help us to enjoy these sort of opportunities. And we almost missed each other, and we didn't because of this. So
yeah, hyper synchronicity. Thank you. And I just want to make sure that everyone can follow you in places that you are giving your teaching and your readings. Where is that?
So if you go to cosmicgaia.org, I have a Cosmic Gaia subscription. I do 4 Zoom events. I try and do it every week, and I bring in guests, and I do mini readings, and just, trying to just build community and give subscribers a platform to share their gifts and their thoughts and whatever, to help them to step into their passion and transition out of maybe the matrix stuff that is kind of holding them down, even trying to raise money for some people that might feel like they can't. So it's really just about a lot of that we were talking about. Then I have the Patreon with David Nino Rodriguez, and it's Dark to Light. And we do a Q&A every other Wednesday, and then we bring on guests. But, I got my YouTube channel, Laura Eisenhower. So cosmiceye.org is my website, and I'm on Twitter, but I've been deplatformed from Facebook and Instagram, but it's okay because nobody's going to ever stop me. I got a love and passion for the human race and Mother Earth and God source that I will never back down from.
I really, really honor that and feel that, and I'm with you on the front lines, and bless you, and just holding your etheric hand right now, and just so honored to be with you.
Oh, it's been so amazing. I'm so honored to be with you, and I look forward to just more that we're gonna create, and I'm just so grateful to know you, and much love, and thank you for having me.
Much love, and yes, I look forward to more.
My name is Guru Jagat, and this is the future of fitness. In this series, I really want to explore a new definition of fitness in this time and in this age. Fitness has been classically used in a way that is kind of from an outside-in perspective. In this series and in these experiences, I want to take you from the inside out using the technology of Kundalini Yoga and meditation. We're going to work the whole of you. And what that means is that there's more than just the physical you. There's a whole kind of plethora of different aspects of your ethereal, physical, mental, and emotional anatomy, and we're going to work that all in this series of incredible exercises.
Lakshman, 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 on the Lakshman, Lakshman, Lakshman.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Reality Riffing. These are conversations that I think are important with people who are doing great things in the world about subject matters that need to be discussed. If you enjoyed the content, the conversation, please feel free to share with your people, share with your friends and family, rate the podcast below, and also subscribe.